Back from recess from it's a continuation from yesterday's hearing, and yesterday we concluded the um, testimony from Mr. Jesus Taisagui, and we called upon Miss Karen to appear before the committee this morning. She is present in the gallery, and so at this time, I would like to invite you, Miss Karen, to the chamber to get sworn in. And when you come in, please stay standing while our counsel swear you in.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you. Good morning again, and thank you for coming in, Miss Karen. We'll just get right into it. And so, if I can just have you state for the record your name and position. Yes, your name and position.
My name is Karen Callan, and I am the loan manager for Bank of Saipan.
And how long have you been with Bank of Saipan?
26 years.
And how many of those years have you been the loan manager?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
Ms. Karen, what is your role in administering the Boost program?
My role is to receive the applications, log them into an Excel file, and present it to the review panel.
Do you go through these applications to verify completeness?
Yes, I do.
You also do that. And when you receive an incomplete application, do you still submit it to the panel incomplete?
Yes, we do.
And so on the report that you submitted to the committee with the applicants, the very first column had dates on them. Would you say that that's the dates of when these applications were received?
That's correct.
And you were the one that compiled this spreadsheet?
Me and several other employees.
And were these other employees also part of the program in terms of collecting and receiving these applications?
Yes, they are.
And who are the others?
They are Anne Juliet Lifoyfoy.
Sorry, the first name?
Anne Juliet.
Okay.
Martin de la Cruz.
Okay.
And towards the end, we included Milani Basa.
Do you make note whether an application has been received in person or through email?
No, we don't.
Okay. Do you take note of when an application has been received from, say, a panel member?
No, we don't.
And Ms. Karen, when did you become involved in the overall Boost program from the time it was discussed up until today?
From the time the program started, well, not started, but when we started having the meetings in probably late March or early April, up to today.
So you were involved since
Yes.
late March to April.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Ms. Karen. I open the floor to the members. I recognize Vice Speaker or Yeah, Vice Speaker.
Ayun, if there's a follow-up question for.
Yes,
Vice-
I do.
Sure, please,
Okay,
Ayun.
thank you. Ms. Callan, you mentioned that even incomplete applications would be forwarded to the reviewing committee.
That's
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you instructed to do so, even though it's incomplete?
I can't recall. We would just accept applications and put a cover sheet and just
And just forward
forward
it?
it to the committee. Yes.
But you don't recall being instructed by any of the review panel to go ahead and forward incomplete applications?
I I can't recall that yet.
Okay. And you mentioned that your role is simply to receive applications, put them on an Excel, format and forward it. Um, so I want to get clarification. You receive some applications by in person and by
Via email.
by email
Via email on the Boost website.
on the Boost
Yes.
website.
Mhm.
Okay, and who is responsible to maintain the website?
I am.
I'm sorry?
I am.
You're responsible to
I am
maintain.
responsible, yes, to maintain the
Maintain.
website.
So you put in the information. You know how to set a web page? Do you put the information there, such as what we see on the website, the eligibility, the contact? That's what I'm asking for. Who set up the website?
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I did not set up the website. What I actually meant was I received the applications via an online portal just for applications.
And who has access?
To the online portal myself.
Yourself?
Yes.
Did Mr. Will Castro have access?
He did ask for the login and the password, and I provided that to him.
And to your knowledge, did he sometimes access the?
I cannot tell.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Fair enough. That's
Mhm.
all. That's all I have. I yield.
Yeah, sorry. Just one clarification before I hand the floor over. When when presenting these applications to the panel, did you have to go through some sort of checklist?
Yes, we did. Before submitting the application to a panel, we attach a checklist in the front that'll show whether an application is complete or incomplete.
Okay. And then you just put it in or forward it to the panel. Going back to the co-chair's question regarding the online portal where you access these applications, and her question on whether you've noticed or do you know if Mr. Castro accesses this portal. This portal is like an email system, right?
It is.
Yeah. So you've never noticed if, say, an email was read that you didn't touch, that you haven't read yourself?
I wouldn't notice. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I recognize Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Callan, Ms. Lifoyfoy, Mr. De La Cruz, and Ms. Bassa, are they employees of
Yes, they
Reconciling?
are.
Okay. And just a follow-up question to the chairman and the co-chair. When you receive the applications and you attach all the necessary documents to be forwarded, how's that process? Do you walk it to a room and place it in a box that sets by date, or is it just random? Just
It was
drop
just
in?
random. We just put it in a box as we receive them.
So you wouldn't know which one's the first application, which one was the last application,
No, we wouldn't, unless you looked at the list.
and the dates,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the panelists have the list with them.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever had ethics training from the bank by any chance?
What do you mean by ethics training?
Just ethics training with the bank. Do they have professional development that include ethics training for the bank itself?
I
No.
wouldn't know. Yeah.
Okay. How about from the CNMI government, since these were government funds that were being utilized for this program through the bank assignment? Did the government come in and provide any ethics training for you guys?
No.
Okay. All right. So one of the late additions to the programs was the FFR, the Fisheries, Farmers, and Ranchers
Mhm.
and Workforce now. So the Secretary of Commerce said that he was not involved in the review panel for that. Neither was Jesus Taisagui, who was in the review panel for the FFR and the Workforce boost.
We don't know. I don't know.
You don't know.
Mhm.
We asked this because Mr. Arroyo had mentioned that um, Miss Salinas and Mr. Shane Villanueva would come in and review those documents. If you recall him saying that during his testimony,
Yes.
but you never saw them personally reviewing these documents.
They did. They did come in, and we gave them a list of rules instructions. We gave them a list of the applications for the Fisher Farmer Rancher program, and we also gave them the applications.
Okay, so it was from the Chief of Staff, Will Castro, that contacted Banco Saipan to give them the authority to review these documents,
That's correct.
not Banco Saipan or the central government. Correct?
No.
Okay, thank you. And it was, sorry, the names of the individuals that Will Castro had told you to allow them
Selena Sapp or Shane Villanueva.
for both, right?
That's correct.
So I guess since the
Mm-mm.
review panel that you know who the individuals that should have been in the review panel made the decisions for the applications for the boost program. The FFR was reviewed by these two individuals. Did they make the decisions of who would be getting the boost or not?
I wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't know that.
Yes.
Who would know that?
Mr. Will Castro.
Mr. Wilcoster. So the FFR and the workforce were only Mr. Wilcoster's decision through those two individuals' recommendations. And I guess that's the way it seems, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Do you know if there was a rubric that was utilized for the FFR program or the
None.
workforce?
None at all.
No, no rubric, or you
No
don't
rubrics.
know?
I
No
don't know.
rubrics.
Yeah.
Okay. But you yourself were not involved in any of the review panels at all,
No.
right? Okay. Did you document any of the decision making for the farmers, fishers, and ranchers program of the boost? Of who was paid out or
We did document. We provided a list of all the applications that came in, and we also provided a list of who were awarded.
okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you. How about the small business
Mm.
program of the boost? Did you see a rubric system that they might have used? So according to Mr. Taisagui, there was nothing. They just went in there and shook hands and made decisions.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice. Just oh yeah, a couple more have clarifying, but I think Rep. Staffler.
Thank you. Just some clarifying questions too. Um, I was curious what you did mention that there was a cover sheet and that it included the items that were required. Did it also include the date of submission on the check?
Yes, it did.
It did.
Yes.
So if they wanted to see, if a reviewer wanted to see when a application arrived, it was available on the checklist.
Yes, it is.
Okay. When you would receive an email application, would you print that?
Yes, we will.
So you just print it, then add the
Covered-
checklist?
Yes, checklist, and mark off the whatever required documents were there, and
In your, just in general, were most applications complete or incomplete? Just in your memory?
I'm not sure.
Okay, just curious.
because there were a lot of applications that came in, so.
There were, and I guess in Mr. Jesus Taistagui's testimony, he mentioned that there were a lot of incompletes, and so I wondered if that was something you also observed. When you would organize the applications, how you just put it in the box on top of each other, or was it side by side on like?
Some were on top of each other, some were side by side.
There was no like dates piles or alphabet piles or anything?
No, none.
When you would put the pile, when you would go in to add new applications, could you tell that the boxes had been disturbed or you looked through?
Yes.
And when you see how they look through it, what does it look like when they leave it behind? Like, how is it neat or is it like matzalapan or?
Well, some would be left on the desk, so we just after the review, we just take them and just push them back into the box. So we cannot tell whether the ones that were outside, the ones that were inside were reviewed or not. There's no way.
So when you would pick it up, would you put them back in the box so that they'd get mixed up with the other ones that might have not been looked at yet?
That's correct.
Okay. Who created the content for the web page? So you maintained and went inside to look for new responses, but who put the information up there? Like,
The web page, I don't know who created the web page.
Okay.
Yeah.
you didn't help with the content, so like the
No.
language in it?
No, we didn't.
Okay, thank you. I yield, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you, Ms. Karen. Thank you for coming in. I just have a few follow-up questions for you. Who at Bank of Saipan has the overall responsibility for reviewing the applications when they are received? Is there a designated person that just strictly oversees the receipt of all the applications coming in, whether in person or through the portal?
If it's just if you're talking about receiving the applications, that'll be myself. Reviewing the applications, we do not do that.
I mean, when I say review as in making sure that according to the checklist that was referred to by Mr. Arroyo, that everything is being checked, whatever that was submitted.
That would be myself.
That would be you.
Yes.
Do you have an alternate in case you aren't available, or,
Yes, I do.
and who would that be?
That would be Angela Lifoyfoy or Martin de la Cruz.
So you have two alternates?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Who is responsible for completing the checklist that was referenced by Mr. Arroyo? Is it just whoever that received the application?
Can you clarify your question?
Okay, because somebody might just like receive it, date stamp it, and put it in a pile. Then someone else is designated to actually review the packet and go through the checklist. So I'm trying to understand the process.
Okay. So when a boost application comes in, if we are not available to receive the application, a staff member can receive the application and attach a checklist, but they would not put it in the box. They would forward it to us so we can include it in the Excel list of
And
applications.
any staff from the bank?
To receive the application, yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it your understanding that even though the application packet is incomplete, that it should still be forwarded to the panel for review? Is that an established understanding by all Bank of Saipan employees who are receiving the, so
Yes.
despite an incomplete packet, you would still forward it to the panel?
That's correct.
Is there a box that's strictly maintained for incomplete packets, so they're not wasting their time sifting through all those applications only to find out that it's incomplete, or everything is just thrown
Everything
in
is
there?
just thrown into a box.
Okay. Can you give the committee an idea of what type of information is on the checklist?
On the checklist, aside from we require the applicant's name, the date we received the application, a request letter, a business plan, a business profile, a list of services and products, a copy of their business license, copy of a certificate of compliance from Revenue and Tax, and if applicable, a copy of certificate of existence from Department of Commerce.
And it's basically just, I'm trying to picture, so a
Mm-mm.
cover sheet with
Yes.
maybe boxes, right, that you would just check
That's
mark.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And does it also require the person reviewing to put their name on it to so that you guys know who reviewed it
Who
and the
received
day
it?
who received it?
Yes. Yes, there is a signature page. I'm sorry, a signature line at the bottom for whoever received the application to
So
just sign off.
right, but you also mentioned earlier that it could be any staff at the bank who received those application and just slap a cover sheet on it. So they wouldn't put their name on it. It would be the person who's actually taking the time to review the packet with the
No,
checklist.
the signature page on the front cover list is who received it. So if it was any staff in the bank that received it, they would sign off on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I guess I'm just trying to understand because if, let's say, the three of you weren't available and another staff receives it,
Mhm.
right, it would have the date, but maybe you or the others might not get to it until the day after or a few days later. That would be kind of um, inaccurate because it was shown that it was received on this day, but yet it wasn't really reviewed, right, by you guys until maybe a day later. So if we were to look at it historically, it would kind of be skewed, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Anyway, I guess. Um, okay, so you mentioned that there were three Bank of Saipan employees that are involved in the Boost program. Yourself, Miss Angela Lieto, and who were the other?
Martin de la Cruz.
Martin de la Cruz,
Yes.
and then another one was just added recently.
Just to help input Boost applications.
Okay,
Yes.
can you tell us what the other two, Miss Lieto and Martin, what their position titles are at the bank?
Miss Lee Foy Foy and Martin are both collectors.
Collectors, okay.
Yes.
And um, what are their roles in the Boost program? Just to review those applications coming in.
Just to help receive the applications, yes, and
Do
enter them into the log.
and I think you also mentioned that they have access to the Excel, which is
Yes.
maintained by yourself.
Myself.
Okay. Um, do you guys run any reports at the end of the day to for management, right, or whoever the Boost administrator program lead is, to show how many applications were received for the day, or it just your only responsibility is just to log those in?
That's correct. We just log them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have access to the Excel spreadsheet?
It's on a shared drive,
It's on a
so
shared drive.
yeah.
So anyone
Anyone, yes.
as an employee at the bank would have access to that spreadsheet.
Whoever had access to the shared drive would have access to the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it password protected?
No, it's not.
Okay. You mentioned something about the portal, the Boost portal, right? Which you
Mhm.
yourself have access. Anyone else? I think you answered it, but I didn't catch it. So who else has access to that portal?
I had shared the login and the password with Mr. Will Costro.
And you shared it because he requested for it?
That's correct.
And did he provide a justification as to why he needs access to the portal?
No, he did not.
And what is the policy as far as providing password and login information to to an employee, to someone who is not a Bank of Saipan employee?
Well, that portal is a Boost portal. It's not a bank portal. So
Well, but the bank is the administrator, therefore the bank has this responsibility of, you know, right, of the Boost program. But I'm trying to understand what will be Will's justification to have access to the portal if his role in this Boost program is to review the application.
I wouldn't know.
There,
Yeah.
the the Boost program or Bank of Saipan has no policy in place as to the confidentiality of providing login information and password just to anyone who requests?
The bank does have its own policy in regards to sharing logins and passwords. However, with the Boost program, there was no policy made. So
Does Mr. Arroyo have access to the portal?
he does have the password and the login, but I don't know if he,
So aside from yourself, Mr. Arroyo, and Mr. Castro, who else has access?
to the best of my knowledge, just the three of us.
Okay, and so Will contacted you directly to request for that information.
He had contacted Mr. Arroyo for the information, and then John told me to provide the
Okay, got it.
information.
So you did get
Yes.
permission, or you had permission to share. Got it.
Yes.
And I was just curious, does the bank or anyone in the program or at the bank have access or the capability of running such a report which shows like the log of who was signing in or logging in at what, when, what time, stuff like that? Do you know?
No, I don't.
So as a system, who's the system administrator for the portal?
I don't know who the system administrator is.
I mean, there
I
has to be
mean,
a system administrator that basically this person would have full control of the website and can go in and put in controls in place, right, to determine who gets access, what kind of access you have, like like all those controls in place. So do you know who that administrator is?
no,
Okay, so you wouldn't know. Have you guys ever run a report that shows that details out the log of who's been accessing the portal and when?
no.
Okay. Is that something that you can find out from Mr. Arroyo if we are able to get such a report which details out, every day, or if you can run a duration of time, right, from let's say September 1st through December 1st, who has been accessing the portal, and the dates and the time? Is that something that you could request from Mr. Arroyo to provide the committee?
I could. I will.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. That would be all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Megosnia. Ms. Karen, just a few follow-up questions. Can you just walk us through the process when you receive an application and you attach a checklist and then you put it into a box? What do you do? Do you label the box, or is it just a box with applications? Is there any labels on it saying
There are
that
no
these
labels
were?
on. Oh, I'm sorry. Um, we did label the boxes Rhoda, Tinian, Saipan, incubator applications, and nonprofit applications.
Okay, so you wouldn't even have dates on the box that would say these were applications received from a period of time?
None.
So would it be fair to say that the first group of applicants that submitted applications would probably be more on the bottom of the stack as opposed to the top of the stack?
Yes.
Okay. So once a box, I guess, is filled, you would send that into this room where they store all these applications?
No. So we have a designated room at the bank where we put all the applications. So as we receive them, we log them in the Excel file, and then we walk them into the room and just put them in the box where they belong.
Okay. Can you help us visualize maybe how many boxes you would say there are in the room with all these applications?
I would say about 10 boxes or more.
10 boxes.
Yes.
And so no dates on any of those boxes, just the islands and then the type of program.
Type. That's correct.
Okay. Um, in regards to the FFR, um, based on the records we received, there was about 141 recipients of this award. Does that seem accurate to you?
I can't recall.
Okay. But you kept records of how many were awarded, correct?
That's correct.
When did you become involved with this FFR? Being seeing as how it is a part of this boost program, overall
Mhm.
boost program.
I think it was when the program had started, a few days before the launching of the program on November 18, there was I can't recall the word for that.
Well, so when you came on board around March to April, was the FFR discussed then?
No,
Right. So it was just around the time the application period was open,
about a few days or weeks before that. Yeah.
the August opening or the FFR opening?
The FFR opening. We're talking about the FFR, right?
Right, which kind of came later on, um,
The launch for the FFR was on November 18.
November 18th.
Yes.
And so it was only discussed, or you were only part of the discussion with the FFR a couple of days before November 18th.
Correct.
Did they set a cap as to how many awards they will give out for the FFR?
I believe they did.
Do you know what that cap is?
I cannot recall.
Do you know if you've reached that cap?
I don't know.
Um, is Banco Saipan also in charge of distributing the awards
Bank
for the
aside,
FFR?
we are in charge of preparing the checks, and then we hand the checks over to Miss Selena Sapp, and they would distribute the checks.
Ms. Selena Sapp would distribute the checks.
That's correct.
Okay. Would you happen to know why the Department of Finance on Rhoda would be the one distributing FFRs?
Ooh, I didn't know about that.
Okay. So none of the FFRs came from Banco Saipan. As in, you called up an awardee or a recipient to come pick up their FFR. None of that came from Banco Saipan.
I know I didn't call any, and my staff did not. So
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Karen. Any other members? Recognize co-chair. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Donald. Just a couple of questions. Where are all the applications now? Where are these boxes that was in the 10 or more boxes that were in this room? Where are they now? The applications.
Sorry, members. We'll take a
5 minutes.
short recess. Really short. We now rise back from recess, and co-chair had the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Domino. I'll withdraw the question at this time. Um, With respect to the FFR, who instructed you to give the applications to Miss Selena Sapp,
Mr. Will Castro.
Mr. Will Castro? And did you also give FFR applications to Mr. Shane Villanueva?
Yes, we did. Yes, I
Who
did.
who else did you give FFR applications to?
There were a group of individuals in the conference room. I don't know their names, but Shane was there and Selena was there also. So
Was Mr. Rob Trevilla there as well?
I can't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are this group, were they government employees?
I wouldn't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
How many FFR applications were received?
A lot.
Give
I
us
would say
an
maybe
approximate
over 3,000
of
for all islands.
FFR.
I think, yes.
How many were approved?
I can't recall.
Can you give us an estimate? You gave us a list.
Yes.
Yeah, that list roughly has 141 names on it. Is that correct?
Is that 141 approved lists or approved
According to the
awards?
reply from the Bank of Saipan, Mr. John Arroyo gave us also, because we asked for it,
Mhm.
a list of boost documents. And in his reply, one moment. In his reply, he lists the following as the FFR awardees, meaning, and he further mentioned that $500 was given to each of these individuals, and that was a completed process already. So that list contains roughly approximately 141 awardees. Does that sound right?
I would have to check. I can provide that list, an updated list to you. I mean,
Sure.
that list was not.
But off the top of your head, do you recall how many approximately received $500 from the FFR?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Do you recall if the FFR applications were treated identical to how the review panel reviewed the boost for small businesses and nonprofits? Meaning, did they randomly pick applications as well? Was it also in a box, a separate box on its own?
They were in a separate box in its own. How they picked the awardees, I wouldn't know.
Okay, so you've never witnessed or observed their process as to how these FFR applications were selected to be
No.
given. Okay. Um, that's all I have for now. I yield.
Thank you. Recognize Representative Blanc.
Thank you, chairs, and welcome, Ms. Callan. We did receive a couple of spreadsheets that I think you prepared for these committees, right? Including one that's labeled all FFR.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And according to the spreadsheet, there is a count that notes at the very bottom that 5,197 applications were received, and then 368 of those were awarded. Does that sound familiar?
Now that sounds correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so these were all FFR applications, both commercial and subsistence? Was there a distinction between, because weren't there also commercial
Those were
FFR applications and then the $500 subsistence that anybody
That's
could
correct.
get?
So that list that you got was that list that we provided was
Mhm.
all FFR for subsistence for all three islands.
Just for subsistence. So what
That's
about for
correct.
the commercial grants?
We haven't gotten to putting that together.
As in those haven't been awarded or reviewed, or what do you mean?
Um, There were some applications, just a few applications that came in for FFR commercial.
Mhm.
Um, I never prepared a list for that one.
Okay. Like how many came in for commercial?
I would say about 6
Okay. Were you,
or less.
but those haven't been awarded
No, they haven't.
or reviewed by that? Okay. Could you provide that list to us
Of
as well?
course.
Okay. And then I'm a little bit confused about the role of Mr. Shane Villanueva and Miss Selena Sapp. So were they only asked to review the FFR subsistence applications, according to Mr. Castro?
Um, just the FFR. I think so. I don't know.
As far as you know, the only
As far as I
applications
know.
that you provided to them were the FFR subsistence
That's
applications. Okay. And then, do you know why Mr. Villanueva and Miss Sapp?
No,
Okay. Mr. Castro just instructed you to provide them access to these
That's correct.
applications. And these applications were reviewed in the same room as all the other Boost applications?
no, we moved them to another room.
Okay. Um, okay. And were you aware of any other role that Mr. Villanueva and Ms. Sapp had in the Boost program?
Aside from media, nothing else.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you knew that they were both the marketing and promotions people
Yes.
as well as reviewing these FFR applications. And then how is it that there were other people in the room with Mr. Villanueva and Ms. Sapp reviewing these applications?
I don't know.
Did Mr. Castro advise you that there would be other people reviewing with them?
No,
Did Mr. Villanueva or Ms. Sapp advise you that there would be other people reviewing with them?
no,
Okay, you have no idea who these people were.
no.
Um, would Mr. Arroyo know who these people were?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And going back to the portal access that you provided to Mr. Castro, you mentioned already that he didn't give you the reason for asking for access, right? But why just Mr. Castro?
You're asking why Mr. Castro was the only one that requested? I don't know.
Or was the only one provided access? Like of all the review panelists,
He was the only one who requested.
he was the only one who
That's
requested.
correct.
And what was your understanding of his role in this Boost program?
That he is on the review panel,
Mhm.
and we took most of our lead from him.
Okay. Okay. So most of the instructions about this program came from Mr. Castro,
That's correct.
not from any other member of the review panel.
No.
Okay. And then this portal, like what kind of information was actually in it? Just the applications and the supporting documents?
That's correct. Applications, supporting documents, applicants following up on their applications.
Okay. So all those
So it was
communications.
just an email portal.
I see.
Yes.
And so responses to these applicants also came through that portal?
That's correct.
Okay. Um, and then this process that you described, you said that you would forward the applications to the review panelists?
We would leave the applications in a box.
The
and in a
hard
s-
copies?
That's correct. in a
Only the
separate-
hard copies?
The hard copies.
Okay. But you would never forward electronic applications?
I would, if requested.
Okay. If requested. Did you get requests for specific applications or for all of the applications?
I have. Not for all, just for specific.
For specific
Mm.
ones. Who requested specific applications?
Mr. Will Castro.
Just him?
Yes.
Which applications did he specifically request?
I can't recall.
Can you recall any that he specifically requested?
I know that I provided him a copy of the bank's application.
Okay.
And
He requested that?
that's correct.
Okay. Um, but he requested others as well?
Yes, he has.
But you don't recall which ones?
I don't recall.
Would you have a record of that then?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Could you
Mhm.
provide that with this committee as
Of
well?
course.
Um, and then to clarify the other spreadsheet that you provided us, the dates of submission, is that the dates of submission once all the applications were complete, or even the dates that the incomplete applications?
Even the dates that the dates we received the application, whether they're complete or incomplete.
That's what that spreadsheet
Yes.
notes. Okay. And when, as incompleted applications were being
Mm.
updated, right, and as they were being made whole, I think is how
Mhm.
Mr. Castro put it, how would you then, or how would you and your colleagues then update the checklist and the applications that were in the boxes?
On our spreadsheet, we had a breakdown on our spreadsheet of the required documents. So as they're made whole, we would update that spreadsheet, and then we would also pull out the application and attach it.
So you'd have to go into the boxes, manually search for them,
That's correct.
and then attach the updated records. Wow, that's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
Is there a reason why this process was done manually and not electronically on a shared drive that you could just easily update or do it through the portal? Was there
No. Yeah.
who developed this very labor intensive process?
The Excel was prepared by John. He gave us the Excel list and told us to follow that. That Excel list also had a list of, the checklist. So we would just mark on the Excel list what documents were attached to that application.
Mhm.
And as they're made whole, we'll update the checklist and then look for the application and update that also.
Okay.
Nobody told us to do that. We just did it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering why didn't the bank make more use of technology?
Mm.
Especially, when you had thousands of applications coming in, right? And as they're being updated, simultaneously with thousands of applications, like why was it done? Why was so much of this the review process anyway, like just manual hard copies
Mhm.
in physical boxes, no particular order, right?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know.
Okay. Um, I I think that's it for my clarifying questions for this round, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Sablon. I will now recognize the Vice Chair for Ways and Means, Representative Karina McGo.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just have some clarifying questions for you. So when the applications are received, are they manually received? Like, when you receive them, do you just manually write the date, or is there a date stamp that you guys use?
We manually write the dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is part of your responsibility or the other two assisting with the process to follow up with applicants who have submitted an application but are missing documents?
That's correct.
So it is part of your responsibility to
Yes.
follow up.
Yes.
At what point do you follow up, since you guys pretty much just receive the application and then put it in the box for the panel review? Do you guys ever go back into that box and sift through the pile to pull out those applications that are missing documents and then follow up with them?
We didn't have to because we had that Excel file that will show us whose applications were incomplete.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
Okay. So how often do you guys look at the Excel spreadsheet and follow up with applicants who are still missing documents?
Every day.
Every day. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. Has any of the panel member ever asked any of you guys to follow up with specific applicants who are missing documents?
No, I don't think so.
So whenever they pull up applications from the box, since the box is not labeled whether or not these are completed applications versus incomplete, right? So they would just randomly pick applications, and for those that they picked out that are missing documents, do they ever contact any of you guys to say, hey, I would like to review this application, but it appears that it's missing some documents, so could you please follow up with this applicant? Has any of them ever asked you, any of you guys, to follow up with the missing documents?
They may have, I can't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Going back to those other people who were in the room assisting Mr. Villanueva review the applications, right? Was Mr. Arroyo aware of their presence in that room?
Yes, he was.
He was. So as the administrator of the Boost program, you would say that he approved of them being there to review applications despite the fact that there are not employees.
I don't know.
But he was okay with them being in there.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then with regards to the bank's application, you had stated earlier that you sent it to Mr. Castro, correct? Because he
That's correct.
requested for it.
Hmm.
Did you send it to him via email, via WhatsApp?
I sent it via email.
Okay. And did you send him just the application or all the other documents that should accompany the application?
I cannot remember what was attached in that email, but I do know that I sent him the application together with an updated listing of these small business applications for the Boost program.
Okay. So did he ask for the application because he wanted to review it?
I don't know.
I guess what I'm trying to clarify is, in order to review the application, right, for the panel members to determine whether or not to award them, they would need all the other supporting documents, such as the business plan. And I'm trying to, I guess, ask you if you recall attaching such a business plan with the application when you sent it to Mr. Castro.
I don't recall.
Okay. Would you be able to pull that email that you
Yes,
sent
I
to Mr.
can.
Castro and share it with and provide it to the committee?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Um, that's all I have for now. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other members? Recognize Rep. Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, Ms. Cannon.
Morning.
Um, I want to start off by asking, you're a loan officer at Banco Saipan, is that correct?
That's correct.
So when you review loans as a loan officer, do you guys have a system or of documenting or on how decisions are made?
Yes, we do.
So do you guys use a score sheet or something to decide if the loan is viable, like a rubric loan?
That's correct. We do.
Okay, so you are aware that we have been informed by the witnesses that there was a rubric that they had used, but have you ever seen that rubric
Mm,
for boost applications?
I've never sat in their review panel, so I don't know.
So you're not aware, or you have never seen uh, a rubric that they would use, even when they're, because you mentioned earlier that you guys would go to the conference room and clean up, I guess, right, and reorganize the where they had reviewed applications. Did you ever by chance see whether or not they had left a rubric or some kind of um, measuring tool, or for deciding on these applications?
None.
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 Okay. Do you own or have any businesses that have received boost funding?
Yes, I have.
Could you please state the name of the business and how much did you?
The company name is Ocean 6 LLC, and we received 50,000 in award.
Okay, thank you. And may I ask when did you apply for the boost award?
I believe it was sometime in August.
August. So that's like the early onset of when the program started.
That's correct.
May I ask how were you informed? Or obviously you're an employee of Bank of Saipan, so you guys, okay, all right, I see. And do you know how many other Bank of Saipan employees had received Boost award?
Myself and one other, um, we own the company, so we received Boost Awards. And then we have two employees whose spouses own the company and they've received Boost Awards also.
Okay, do you know by chance how much they had received as well?
Um, I know one employee received one other employee received 50,000. I'm not sure what the other two received, but I know the amounts were lower.
Okay, so that would bring it to a total of 4 employees of Bank of Saipan that had received Boost Awards.
That's correct.
Okay, may I ask also what types of business did they apply as or apply for? And yours included.
Okay, mine is Ocean Six is a grab and go restaurant. We offer lunch and catering. My other employee, I mean, my other employee, yes. Theirs is a ground maintenance service. The other one is a recording, music and recording studio. And I think the last one is a, I don't know if the word massage parlor is right or something to that effect. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think, or what do you think Will Castro meant when he messaged you, "I got your back, watch mine"? And why would he say that?
I don't know. I know that WhatsApp you're referring to, and I did read that. I didn't comment on that. I didn't know what to say of that.
Okay, fair enough. And while administering the Boost program, were you able to continue to do your work as a loan manager?
No, just not much. Yeah.
So you were pretty occupied with
Yes, I
the
was.
as a okay. When people would call you about updates on their application status, who would you tell them is the only one that approves the requests?
I would tell them that it was the review panel, and whatever update they, I mean, if they call for an update, we just tell them that we're just waiting for an update from the review panel.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho. I recognize the co-chair.
Thank you, Chairman Donald. Ms. Callan, you earlier testified that Mr. Castro took the lead in this program and that you replied to Rep. Tina's questions, some of her questions, whether you received instructions from some other people. I want to ask, did Mr. Atalik ever contact you directly to follow up on specific applications, either by email or by text?
I don't think so.
Okay. What about Mr. Taisagi? Would he, does he, or did he ever call you maybe and say, did you receive this application? Is it logged in?
No, he did not.
No, he did not. Have you ever had any contact with Mr. David Atlick, the Secretary of Finance, or Mr. Taisagi with respect to the Boost program?
Mm, no,
Did you ever see Mr. Atlick reviewing documents at Bank of Saipan?
not reviewing documents, but I would see him come into the bank.
So
would
not
s-
reviewing applications.
I do not see him. I did not see him reviewing applications.
You did not see him reviewing
I did not
applications
see if he
because,
was reviewing applications. I think
I'm
that's what,
sorry?
I think what I meant to say is I did not see if he reviewed any applications or not.
Okay, so you're not sure if he
Not
was in
sure.
there reviewing or not. Do you know why he was there?
On some occasions, Will Castro would mention that Mr. Atalig and Mr. Taisagui, Mr. Ed would be joining him to review applications.
That's what Mr. Castro told you,
Yes,
but you aren't sure that they were actually reviewing applications.
not sure.
And when you say Mr. Ed, you mean Mr. Edward DeLeongro,
That's correct.
Secretary of Commerce. Thank you for clarifying that. Did you ever receive a call from anybody else at the governor's office with respect to booths, whether it's following up applications?
I received a lot of calls
Okay.
following up loan applications from employees of the government who've submitted their
Loan
applications.
loan documents. You said loan?
Oh, I'm sorry. Boost applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you act on those calls? When somebody called you, did you actually say, okay, I received your application, or let me look for it in the box and put it on the top of the pile?
When I receive the calls, I'll confirm in the Excel sheet whether we received the application or not. And um, if they ask me to push the, what's the right word?
Advance, or
To advance their application to the review panel, then I will give a list to Will.
you will give a list to Will?
Yes,
Only to William Castro.
that's correct.
Do you recall who those applicants are?
No, but I can probably go through the list and share that with you.
That would be helpful for us. We would appreciate it if you can provide that. Did Governor Torres ever contact you? And
No,
no, never.
never.
That's all I have for now. I yield.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Recognize Rep. Staffler.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Callan, I was thinking about one of the questions that was asked earlier about your role as a loan officer. You do use rubrics as a loan officer, yes?
Yes, we do.
And I was wondering, as you observed the process, were you concerned that you didn't see similar documentation that you might use, like them using a rubric, or you didn't find any kind of note-taking around in the review panel room?
No,
Did it concern you as someone who also reviews documentation and things like that, that you weren't seeing things like any kind of, I guess, paperwork to show that they're following a process of any sort?
no,
Did it concern you?
no.
When we looked at an email between Will Castro, John Arroyo, yourself, Seuss Taisagui, Selena Sapp, and David Atelig in preparation for this legislative hearing, Castro says that the boost files need to be reconciled. Instances of hard copies in the boost files room that are not on the list due to human error, which is understandable. Castro asked for the team to meet and sort the piles by island and category, then chronologically as well. Do you happen to have that list by island and category?
Yes, we do.
Is that one of the ones we received, Chair?
It was in the first
Okay.
response from the Bank of Saipan.
So we did receive that list. What did it mean by, what did Will Castro, do you know what he meant by reconciling the hard copies in the file room that might not be on your list? Like, how would there be, anyone on the list that wasn't on the list? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. As we print applications online, we would just print them continuously, and there may be a time, there may be an application that was picked up in error and stapled together with a previous or a former application on top. So
Oh, so some might got lost that way.
that's true.
I see. The latest list of applicants we received showed that some awards were given, but some people have called us and told us that they didn't get an award. So how do we explain that?
There were, I believe, three, three or two lists that were given to us in December, and they were approved awardees. However, we did not prepare the checks because there was no funding yet.
And this was after the election, so these were just approved in the most recent meetings.
That's correct.
What was the date for that again?
I believe there was a December 13 and a December 12th list. I'll have to confirm that.
You said now that you were given the lists. Do you give the list to them, or do they give the list to you? Or is it only like you give them the list, they review it, they pick the ones, and then they give you back a list and say, write checks for these guys?
For the approved applications, that list would come from John Arroyo. He'll give me the list of approved applications.
Did you also have the list of vendors to pay for like the marketing and those things too? Did it go through you or
No.
someone else?
That went to our accounting department.
So those lists didn't even go through, they just went directly to accounting.
That's correct.
Do you know if the Bank of Saipan has suspended all programs under the boost, or is it still ongoing right now?
We already stopped accepting applications as far as we know, and what we're telling everyone who's following up on their application, we're still waiting for an update.
Who are you waiting to give you that update?
The review panel.
Okay, so you're waiting for them to meet and then give you more instructions.
That's correct.
So that means you don't know right now if the Bank of Saipan is planning to issue the remainder of the awards that were approved?
We don't know.
That's the one you
Yeah.
had that were
Mhm.
highlighted to say that they're waiting.
That's correct.
Do you, like, because you work at Bank of Saipan and you guys are administering this, did you guys have any discussion about the future plans to monitor awardees to ensure compliance to their program objectives?
John and I did discuss that.
What
Yes.
is the plan?
Our plan was to go out and visit the awardees and just compile how they use the funds and also how the program had helped their business.
So you guys plan to physically go out, or are you going to email people or call?
I think we plan to physically go out.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Good thing there's only 240. Are you guys also doing the FFR visits too, or that's not in your purview at all?
I'm not sure about the FFR.
Okay. So I had a person reach out to me who also received a grant, and they had really thought the program was, good for the community, and so they also were promoting it and sharing with other people so that they could also get, their application in. And that person shared that after seeing all of this stuff on, about the program and how it was conducted, that person shared that they were also kind of disappointed because they really wanted it to be good for the whole community, and they did receive a boost, but they feel like even they used their connection to get their application advanced. And so you kind of mentioned that earlier, that you did advance applications for people when they asked you. Did you do that for anybody that called, or only people that you knew?
Only people that I knew, and only people that asked.
And only people that asked. Everyone that asked, or only people that you knew who asked? Like if someone asked you but you don't really know them, would you also advance their application?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And how would you advance it? Did you just text message a list, or would you put those stacks in a different pile?
I wouldn't pull out the stacks. I'll just write their business names on the list, and I'll just give them to Will.
So it's a physical list, not a text message or an email.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Staffler. Recognize Vice Speaker.
Just a follow-up question. Ms. Callan, you had mentioned that the plan with Mr. Roy is to go physically visit these boost recipients to see how boost helped them out. Who would be visiting Bank of Saipan?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Since you just asked that question, um, a follow up to that would be: has Banco Saipan established a process to recoup funds if a business is not using the funds for its intended purpose?
I don't know.
You don't know there's a
I don't
process?
know. Yeah.
Ms. Karen, has any of the panelists forwarded supporting docs directly to you if they've received these supporting documents?
Yes, they have.
Do you verify? Um, do you also verify if all documents were submitted prior to releasing the award?
Yes, we do.
Have you ever released awards based on instruction without verifying if whether documents were are complete or not?
No, we haven't.
Has there been any instances where there's only one panel member in the review room reviewing applications?
Sometimes I would see just Mr. Castro by himself.
Just him.
Yes,
And this is multiple times.
sometimes.
Have you ever seen Mr. Taisui by himself in the room?
No,
But they would need to get permission
to
from.
enter the room. Yes.
Okay. Do you keep a log of those who come in and out of the room?
No, we don't.
Have you ever seen? So you get an approved list from the panel before processing the checks, correct?
That's correct.
Does the approved list have the governor's signature on it?
No, it does not.
How does the list look like? It just has the names. Is it a spreadsheet that has the names?
It's just a spreadsheet that has the date the applications were submitted, the name of the awards, how much they had requested, and the amount of awards that we were to issue.
So similar to the list that you provided the committee, uh, in the sense where it has the date submitted and all
That's
of that.
correct.
Um, Ms. Karen, there's after the list was published, there were several businesses that contacted the committee, but well, concerned that their name is not on the list of businesses submitted. Do you know why that would be the case?
We actually we submitted one list as requested by the subpoena, and then after that, you guys had asked for a list to show the updated listing of awards that were not on that first list,
Correct.
the application list. So we compiled that list and submitted it, and then you guys had again asked if we can break it down to show the awards side by side, because I believe the first and second list we provided showed a total award. So we went on to prepare a third list, which we thought was correct. We didn't realize that we omitted some items from some applications from the first list.
So the most recent list that you provided the committee, that would be the most accurate list, you would say?
No, if you would give us more time, we would give you a more accurate list by tomorrow.
By tomorrow.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I recognize Rep. Sablon.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to the Bank of Saipan employees' applications. So you mentioned yours, Ms. Callan,
Mhm.
Ocean Six, and who are the other employees that received Boost Awards?
Zara Santos' husband owns Albert Santos Ground Maintenance. Gina De Leon Guerrero's husband owns MG Music. And Arnold Pasqua, I forgot the name of his business.
This is the massage parlor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Did any other Bank of Saipan employees apply besides you four?
There was one that received, but she's no longer with the bank.
Okay, and who was
Yes.
that?
That was Meals for You.
Meals for You?
Mhm.
And who was that? The
Her
employee?
name was Richelle. She was in the accounting department.
Okay, but she was with the bank at the time that she applied.
That's correct.
Okay, so a total of 5 applicants from the bank. But did any other Bank of Saipan employees apply and not receive boost grants?
No, not
Everybody that applied got boosted.
That's correct.
And did you speak with any of the review panelists about your business's application?
I told Will that I was going to submit an application for my company.
Okay, so you told him before you submitted, and you submitted, it looks like, as you said early on in the program, right? Okay, and then the text messages show him inquiring with you specifically about the name of your business and your grant application. Were there, besides you advising him and then him asking you about the name of your company, were there any other communications about your application?
No,
Do you know if he specifically inquired about the applications of other Bank of Saipan employees?
no,
You don't know if he did?
I don't know. Yeah,
Okay. But he didn't ask you about the applications of your colleagues?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. And just to clarify, the follow-up documents that you're going to, or records that you're going to be providing to us, you said that you will provide the list of people that had contacted the bank and asked you for assistance in advancing their application.
That's
right?
correct. Mhm.
And then you're going to provide the specific applications that Mr. Castro himself requested from you, correct?
Okay.
And then of course this updated, accurate listing of all the award applicants.
That's correct.
Okay. Um, and then in terms of okay, so the various lists that were involved in this process, there's a list that you provided to the review panel, correct?
That's correct.
Of all the applications and when they had been submitted, right? And whether they were complete or not, right? And then you would forward that to all of the members of the review panel, or just Mr. Castro?
Just Mr. Castro.
Okay. And anybody else?
I would CC John Arroyo.
Okay. And then it would go through the review panel process, we hope, and ultimately the governor would sign off on an application, or would sign off on whether to approve or not, right? And then what happened after that? You'd get another list.
After that, John would give me the list of applicants who were approved and will be awarded.
Okay. And then you would prepare the checks.
I would pull out the applications. I'll forward the list to the operations department to prepare the checks.
Mhm.
And while they're doing that, I would pull out the applications and make sure that all the required documents are there.
Okay. And then how was the decision made about like who would pick up the checks, who to release the checks to? Where did you get, who gave you directions as to that?
John, I believe it was John, I can't remember, Arroyo. We were discussing how we would issue the checks to make sure that the checks were issued to the right parties. So we came up with a list of requirements to submit prior to receiving the checks. If they were a sole proprietor, all we required was a copy of a valid ID.
Mhm.
If it was someone else that would pick up the check on behalf of the sole proprietor, then we would require an authorization letter from the sole proprietor.
Okay.
If it was a corporation, an LLC, we would require at least a copy of the annual report, the latest annual report, to show who the officers are. And we would also require, aside from the valid ID of the authorized representative who would pick up the check,
Mhm.
we would require a resolution authorizing that person to pick up the check.
Okay. But sometimes checks were released to other individuals, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And could you explain that process?
At the request of Mr. Castro, we would release checks to Salina Sapp
Mhm.
for media purposes, or
Okay.
I think, yeah.
And do you know how the decision was made about which checks Miss Sapp would pick up? And
No,
okay, was
Yeah.
Miss Selena Sapp the only other person besides the authorized individuals that you mentioned who would pick up checks at Mr. Castro's instructions?
yes.
Okay. Now, there were instances in the text messages where the Secretary of Finance was asking to pick up checks for certain businesses. Did Mr. Atalig ever pick up checks for any business?
No, he didn't.
What happened in those cases?
In those cases, he did say that he would pick the checks up, but then he wouldn't come. The owners of the companies would come in and pick up the checks.
Okay. And who were the owners of those companies that picked up those checks?
Um, his sister was one of them.
Okay. For Trove?
For the Trove, the
Okay.
Trove was one of them. His mother was one of them.
His mother. For which business?
Corey's Garden,
Okay.
and I believe his brother-in-law was one of them.
His brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Which one?
It was a fish mart or a fishing charter or something. I wasn't sure.
Okay. Do you remember the name of that business?
No,
Do you remember
but
the
I
name
could
of
provide
the
it
brother?
later. But
Okay.
I forgot his name also.
I see. Okay. But the Secretary of Finance had asked to pick up that check as well and then ended up.
They
No.
came in and picked up the checks.
Okay.
Yes.
Point of clarification, Rep. Saban. I'm sorry, Ms. Callan, you said David's mother would pick up a check as well for Corey's Garden.
Okay, I think I meant stepmother or
Stepmother. Okay, I got it because I know for a
I know.
fact that his biological
Yeah, I know.
mother is no longer here. Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying that.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. So that would have been Miss Corazon Atalik,
Yes.
his stepmother. Okay. And if non-bank employees entered the bank, uh, you mentioned there was no log of whenever non-bank employees would enter the bank to access the boost room where the boost applications were. You
That's
didn't keep a
correct.
log.
No, we didn't.
Okay. But that review area, is it secured within the bank?
It is.
It is.
It's
So
in
they
an
would always
office.
have to, the non-bank employees would always have to get access from a bank employee to get to the room where
If
the
it was
applications
locked,
were.
yes.
If it was locked. Was
Yes.
it always locked?
Yes.
Okay. Would they always go to you to get access?
Yes.
Okay. So you kept the key.
Yes.
So you always knew whenever any member of the review panelists would be going to review applications, you knew when they were coming because they had to get the key from you.
That's correct.
Okay. And you said you never, so Mr. Atalik never asked you for the key.
No.
And Mr. Taisagui also never asked you for the key?
No.
And Mr. De Leon Guerrero never asked you for the key?
No.
Only Mr. Castro?
That's correct.
Okay. And then sometimes Mr. Castro would tell you that the other review panelists were going to be there, but
That's
you never
correct.
saw them yourself.
I have seen them on some occasions, yes.
Just Mr. Taisagui and Mr.
Mr.
De Leon Guerrero,
Taisagui, yes, yes.
but never Mr. Atalik.
No.
Okay. Um,
Point of clarification.
sure.
Miss Callan, you mentioned that David Atlick's sister came in and actually pick picked up the check for the Trove. That's correct.
That's
That's a
correct.
company associated with
Yes.
Miss Carlene
Mhm.
Mitchell. What about Fat Jack Holdings, DBA Mainland Mango? She's also listed as a.
She's listed as an owner. However, she did not pick up the check. They had authorized another individual to pick it up on their behalf.
Do you know who the individual was? Was it the other owner?
No, it
business?
wasn't. I believe it was one of their employees.
One of their employees.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, and I had one point of clarification. You mentioned that Mr. Taiskui never asked you for the key to open up the office. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
But you said he was in the office by himself um, several times.
No, I never said that.
I
I would.
asked you when one panel member would be in the room, and then you said Will would be in the room by himself, and then you also said Mr. Taisui would also be in the room by himself.
No, not by himself.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
May I continue?
You still have the floor.
Okay, and just to clarify that, so
Mhm.
the only panelist that you ever saw in the room by himself was Mr. Castro
On some occasions.
on some occasions.
Yes.
Okay. And then going back to the list of approved applications that you received, they only came from Mr. John Arroyo? He was the only one forwarding approved application, the list of approved applications?
If Mr. Will Castro had sent me a list of approved boost application,
Mhm.
I would get John Arroyo's approval first before acting on it.
Okay, so sometimes you received a list from Will, and
Yes.
sometimes you received it just from
Mhm.
John. Okay. And were there any approved lists that you received that were subsequently added to?
There was, yes.
Okay. And in what, under what circumstances would that happen? When you got a list and then either John or Mr. Arroyo or Mr. Castro would say, oh, add these other names.
That was, I think that was only one list, one of the first rounds that we
Mhm.
received. John had asked me to add just a few companies at Mr. Castro's instructions.
Okay.
Mhm.
So are you familiar? We had this as an exhibit earlier from one of the messages where Mr. Castro said that the governor asked to add 3 more names to the list. Is that the instance that you're talking about when that happened?
I did not see that email, but
Could
or I
we-
didn't see that WhatsApp, but I do know two of those that were not on the list but were handwritten in.
Mhm. Could we pull that exhibit up, Cam? Do you remember the names of the entities that were added subsequently according to Mr. Will's instructions?
They were Lian Investment, DK Enterprise, and NMC,
NMC,
C to sell.
C to sale. Okay. And this was early on in the program then.
That's correct.
Okay. Um, all right. Earlier, when Representative Staffler asked about the lack of any documentation, you testified that you weren't concerned about the lack of documentation that the review panelists were keeping. Could you talk a little bit more about that? You know, how you viewed the process of reviewing these applications?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Earlier, Representative Staffler asked you if you had any concerns about the lack of documentation that the members of the review panel kept in as they were evaluating these applications, right? They didn't keep, I mean, they've already testified they didn't keep score sheets, they didn't
Mhm.
really follow any rubrics, they didn't keep any records at all of their meetings. And you said that you weren't concerned about that. Could you elaborate a little bit more? I guess I'd like to understand with your more than 2 decades of experience reviewing loan applications, how could you not be concerned about the lack of
I think what I
documentation?
meant by not concerned was I didn't really think about how the approved listing was coming out.
Okay, because that wasn't your role in
That's
the program.
true.
Okay. Um, okay, so here's the message that was exchanged between Mr. Castro and Mr. Arroyo back in October 5th, 2022.
Mhm.
So Mr. Castro says, there's a late edition by Gov. The last 3 editions by the man came rather late in the evening. Okay, and then he goes on, this one is missing DK. So that was the one, that's the instance, the one instance that you remember when the governor added 3 more names.
It wasn't the governor who added the 3 more names. It was my boss who told me to add the 3 more names.
Your boss,
John.
pursuant to Will Castro's
That's
instructions.
correct.
And then according to this, Will Castro said, according to the Gov.
Mm.
Okay, so Leanne Investment, DK Enterprise, NMCC to sale. Those are just the 3 that you recall?
That's true. That's correct.
And are you aware of whether or not those applications, were they complete at the time? Had they been vetted by the Bank of Saipan as complete
Um,
at that point?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you know if they went through the review panel?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said that occasionally review panelists would forward supporting documents directly to you. Which review panelists did that?
Mr. Will Castro.
Okay. Anyone else?
If I received additional documents from John Arroyo, they would be coming from Dave Atalik.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
Dave Atalik would email applications to John Arroyo, and he would then forward them to us.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay. And do you know which of those applications came directly from Mr. Atalik to John Arroyo?
Not off of my head, but I can get that list for you.
Okay. Yes, if you could just add that to the other list of lists that you're providing. I do have other questions, chairs, but I know that we're coming up into our lunch break, and I can yield at this time if
Yeah,
you'd like
thank
to
you.
stop
We
here.
are approaching the lunch hour,
Thank
and
you.
so I'll just one question before we go break for lunch. Who has, or 2 questions? Who has access to this room, this where applications are being kept?
I keep the keys for that room.
Just you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Has there been any instances where you would have to open up the room outside banking hours?
Yes.
Several occasions you had to open up outside banking hours.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Would this be on a weekend or?
Yes, it will, either on a weekend or a holiday, I think.
And you would stay until they leave?
I would stay until Mr. Castro leaves, or I have to leave, then I would let him know.
Do you know how long do you remember how long you would have to wait for Mr. Castro?
About 2 hours.
2 hours.
Mhm.
And this again, and it's just Mr. Castro himself. You would open it up for.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry if I open that room, it wouldn't be fair. But we'll pick up with the clarifying questions as soon as we get back from recess. And so at this time, we will break for lunch and we will return at 2 p.m. Thank you.